Thanks everybody for taking the time to join us for the Zoom, the webinar discussion. We've got Aeromotive group that we're going to be talking with. Philip Philip, I'm gonna
Van Busker.
Sorry, I had it different in my mind, but I'm looking at it on the sheet. And then Jackson, can you pronounce your last name?
It's Luig.
Luig. All right. So we'll get to
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So,
I think we sometimes question how we pronounce our own names. Don't think about it too long because then it just kind of gets distorted.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll introduce you guys here in a few minutes and give you the opportunity to talk about Aeromotive Group and what's happening there. And I will introduce the panel members, CB7, that's on here as well. But before we get to that point, I wanted to talk about CarBuff Network and what we're doing with CarBuff Network. So monthly, we take the opportunity to visit with a manufacturer and ask questions about their company and the way that they market their company and relationships that they have in the industry and how they go about that. That's kind of the foundation of the discussions here, with a focus on relationships being the core of our industry and trying to get back to that core in the industry where there's a general understanding of how valuable relationships are to all of us. So that's what we're doing with CarBuff Network. And I want to take a couple minutes to share my screen. And I'm going to go to Aeromotive's website. And on Aeromotive's site, they have the customer or the vehicle directory. And I want to make sure you can all see this because it's grayed out. There we go. Can you guys see the vehicle directory on Aeromotive site?
Yep.
Okay. So going back, we'll just go back to the home page here and show everybody what we're doing. So we're working with manufacturers, trying to help the manufacturers take advantage of the content that's out on CarBuff Network and beyond. And so manufacturers are starting to encourage customers and specifically brand ambassadors to go into CarBuff Network and profile the vehicles and then tie that vehicle to the manufacturers and shops involved in the build. And so down here at the bottom of the page, there's a customer builds tab. So when I click on that, it takes us to the vehicle directory. And this allows people to look through the builds, which is nice to see what builds are connected to the manufacturers. But it's kind of cool because enthusiasts, the customers, the brand ambassadors can get exposure alongside the manufacturers on the manufacturer's website. So there's a lot of value to everybody when the manufacturers are able to promote the builds that they're involved with. And so I've asked John Brereton, he's on the panel. He's one of the members of CB7 to talk really quickly, maybe a couple minutes, Sean, about your build. This is Sean's 55 Chevrolet, and it happens to be on Aeromotive's website. So I'm going to click on that. And Sean, just would you take a couple minutes and talk about building the profile for your car? And why you did that?
Well, I mainly did it just to have a place to document what I've got on the car. I used to run a company called Acceleration Media, and we did I'm sorry, this is with In the Garage Media. It was on All Chevy Performance. But most of the car it's actually my first car had it since I was 16. So been building on it for years and adding things to it as I go. A lot of the stuff we did a fast fuel injection on the blower motor in gosh, I think it was probably 2016 or something, and definitely needed the fuel, needed power, to get the fuel to the front. We put a Rick's tank in it, and put the Aeromotive Phantom fuel pump in there, and you can see all the different companies I have linked with this thing. So it's kind of funny. The motor actually was built in 1992 by RHS, and that was actually before I ever worked at Edelbrock or any of that kind of stuff. So it's one of the first blower motors that they did at RHS. So it's kind of neat. It's got all comp roller stuff in it and all that. So it's kind of neat. It's just, one of those passion things, and car that I've had forever and will never get rid of.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
So this is I think a really cool opportunity to show how companies work together. So Sean works for Edelbrock. This is his personal car, and it's tied to Aeromotive. And as everybody can see, there are so many brands on this build that Sean has, but it really ties everything together. So I wanted to show everybody that to just make sure you understand the value of your customers profiling their cars and then tagging all the brands involved, because then you get exposure as a company with multiple companies' websites. There's a lot of power in that. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing that screen. And I wanted to introduce Philip and Jackson with Aeromotive Group. So I met Philip at a MPMC event probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. I don't know how long ago we met, but we actually started working together on our build, the Wagoneer that we took to SEMA 2 years ago. And that Jeep has been all over the country. We've wheeled it. It's been almost on its top. I mean, it's been at all kinds of angles, and we never, ever lost fuel pressure. And we knew that going in that would be our experience with Aeromotive. And that's why we talked to Aeromotive initially, and they got on board. And now we're working together on another build, taking it to SEMA this year. It's a 70 Chevelle. So, Philip, would you take a few minutes and talk about Aeromotive and what you guys are doing a little bit, and then introduce Jackson, and then we'll go to that point.
Yeah, thank you, Trent. My name is Philip Van Buskirk. I'm the national sales manager here at Aeromotive. We've kind of got a pretty good group of companies now. Aeromotive is actually celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, but we're one of the younger companies in the group. We've got Pertronix has been around for 60 plus years, and Taylor celebrated its 100-year anniversary last year. So I say we've got Pertronix, Taylor, Waterman is our mechanical fuel pumps. On the exhaust side, we have JBA, Doug's, and Patriot. And then with ignition, we have both Pertronix and Taylor. And then we've got the CompuFire and Spike brands, which cover some of the Volkswagen and motorcycle applications. All the brands kind of came together over the last few years. Pertronix had a few of them, and then they merged together. When Steve and Jack were ready to retire, they sold the Aeromotive brands over to the owner that was running Pertronix, and kind of all got together, and it just made sense. I say fuel, air, or exhaust and ignition all kind of go together. So it's been a really good partnership so far, where we can all work together and build the brand stronger. And then we've got Jackson with us as a Jackson's got a longer history at Aeromotive than I do, even though his current stint's only going on a couple of months.
Nice to meet everybody. As Philip was kind of saying, I started out in 2013 doing just graphic design for Aeromotive. And effectively, you hang out around long enough, people will start asking you your questions, and you become a marketing director. So I left in 2019, did a couple other things with other manufacturers, a little bit of freelance work. When the opportunity came to come back here, I missed this place like no other. So I really jumped on that, and I'm really excited to be back. It's only my second month, back at the organization, but really excited about what we're doing, the other brands that are now involved, the opportunities that we have going forward. It's really exciting place to be and to be a part of. So yeah, truly just excited to be back and doing this again.
Good. Yep, it's exciting times at Aeromotive Group. I also wanted to ask you, and this is, I'm sure, on the minds of a lot of probably everybody that's on this call because of the announcement last year at SEMA with the roaster shop. And there's been, I know, a little bit of back and forth on some of that. Jackson, would you mind taking a minute and kind of get us up to speed on what is the relationship between Aeromotive Group and roaster shop, and moving forward, how are you guys working together?
Sure, that's the question everybody wants to know. Obviously, roadster shop carries a lot of weight in our industry, and we all know who they are. Admittedly, the answer is probably a lot less salacious than people are hoping for. We are effectively owned by the same private equity group. It's as early on as it is in the relationship. We're still figuring out how we, how that, becomes intermingled and how we benefit each other. But truly, there's a bit of a division, and we have, parts manufacturing, and like I said, they are effectively, no changes there. They're running their organization as they were before, but, we are owned by the same private equity group now.
And it will remain Aeromotive Group, from what I understand.
Yep. We are, our goals and parts manufacturers differ from theirs a little bit as as a hot rod chassis builder. There may be opportunities in the future as we, things that benefit us both. But yes, that my job is the parts manufacturing and these brands here.
Thanks for clarifying.
Sure, no problem. I was there yesterday. Really cool group of guys. Really great marketing and building, fabrication that they're doing there. So really cool place.
Yeah, they've got a lot going on. Well, I'm gonna do a quick introduction to CB7. And originally, so where CB7 came from was it was a 7 guys plus me and my kid and Spencer, my brother, 7 shops in manufacturing as well. We were in the Tremec trailer when we debuted the Jeep, and I got everybody together, and I said it'd be really cool if we could kind of work together and support each other and help with some initiatives in the industry. And number one, let's help kind of reframe the conversation about relationships in the industry. And so CB7 was kind of born out of that conversation in the Tremec booth at SEMA, and it's grown. It's grown now. I think there's 15 people involved, companies involved in CB7. And so I have asked this group to join the panel, and they come up with questions, and the dialogue is really, really good with this group. And so I want to introduce really quickly the people involved in CB7 that are on the panel, and we're not going to have time for these guys to introduce themselves, but just so everyone knows who's here, we've got Terry McGeehan. Terry is at Hemmings Motor News, been with in the industry for 25 plus years in that world, in the magazine world, media world. So grateful to have Terry on here. Mike Kidd from Tremec. Mike is the aftermarket unit manager for Tremec Transmissions. Mike has been instrumental for sure in the Wagoneer build and now the Chevelle build, and just a good solid kind of foundation for the group as far as manufacturing goes, and other things. But we've got Brent Hughes. Brent is the owner of BJ, one of the owners of BJ's Full Size Jeep Parts. Brian Shepard with Rock Jock 4x4, sorry. Brian's the marketing director and was with Curry before Rock Jock was formed, and worked with Curry for, I don't know, even with the family for 20 plus years in the marketing capacity. Chris Harris from African American Automotive Association. Chris has a pretty major presence at SEMA, involved in a lot of things, trying to grow awareness of just being inclusive, whether it's, doesn't matter what it is, whether man, woman, black, white, tuner car or hot rod, doesn't really matter. Chris's initiative is to, hey, let's all work together and help promote each other's builds and interest in the industry in a respectful way. Is that about right, Chris? There's a lot he does, so, but yes. Let's see, Danny Augusta. Danny is with Steel Rubber Products. Been very, very involved in Hot Rod Industry Alliance there as the chair and past chair, and just a lot that Danny's involved with. We're grateful to have you on here. Kyle Kuhnhausen. Kyle's been going to SEMA now for what, probably 7 years, 8 years. He was the Young Gun award winner in Battle of the Builders, and then that kind of got his foot in the door, and now he is very involved in that and one of the judges, but not this year because Kyle's taken a Corvette to be competing in Battle of the Builders. So Kyle's very involved, has a really good rapport with a lot of manufacturers, and does a very good job of representing brands. So his perspective as a fabricator and a promoter of brands is really instrumental in CB7. We've got Lucas Kraft. Lucas has built different garage with his dad, Rod. They have family projects that they build, Jeeps mainly, and he's got a couple of them behind him. Lucas is kind of dipping his toe in the water on the, dare we say, influencer, brand ambassador world. And but Lucas does a really good job of just making sure that his partners are taken care of on the builds. And he does other things, and maybe at some point he can explain what he's up to. We've got Nate Staker with Resurgence Automotive. Nate and his dad, Rob, built the Wagoneer and are building the Chevelle as well. So very, very involved in what we're doing, and we appreciate all of that. Sean Brereton with Edelbrock, and Sean is a photographer, does a lot in that world, does a lot of editorial for magazines and Good Guys and all that. So good perspective on the manufacturing side, but also the media world. Spencer Campbell, my brother. Spencer's been involved with CarBuff for the last 14 years. And he currently has the Wagoneer in his possession and has been transporting that around to where it needs to go. And he's an electrician by trade, has a electrical contracting company, which allows him to be involved in CarBuff when he needs to. And so Spencer is very involved in what we're doing with CarBuff. We've got Tom Maddock with Tom Shop. Tom makes a living now He was a nuclear engineer. I guess he still is, but not practicing. And now he's making his living off of videos, creating content for partners in the off-road world. And he recently had the Wagoneer, did an episode on that, changing out the steering with a PSC steering assist. And from what I hear, that's made a world of difference on the steering in the Wagoneer, which we call Sasquatch. And then Zach Zamudio, Zach owns Pyramid Optimized Design, and they do a lot of custom work, but he's transitioning into manufacturing, more of the manufacturing than the custom is the transition. But he does all kinds of crazy stuff. He's making the wheels for our Chevelle and the steering wheel, and did the valve covers for the Wagoneer. We have a Hemi, 3rd gen Hemi in that, and he did the valve covers to make it look old school. So tons of talent at Zach's shop with his people. So that's CB7. I want to start our discussion with a question for Aeromotive Group. So Philip or Jackson, either one or both of you can answer this. But my first question is aimed towards CarBuff Network. You guys have been working with us for probably 3 years initially when we started talking, and then about a year and a half ago, you actually signed up with CarBuff Network. And in the last year, you've started integrating CarBuff Network's tools into your system. So my question for you is, how does CarBuff Network help you as a company, brands, with your relationships in the industry and with branding?
I'll kind of start off a little bit. I say, since me and Trent have been working together for a number of years now, it's really just been a great platform to not only for CarBuff's builds, but for other customers' builds, to see where our products are at. We know we're selling products, they're going out there, they're going on customers' cars, but to be able to see the lists and have the customers build out those pages, it gives us insight into some of the really cool builds out there that we may or may not know about otherwise. We try to go out to shows and different events and see all those. And even just this past weekend at the Good Guys in Columbus, I had a couple of people ask me, I've got a bunch of your products on my car. Can you guys use my car as a featured car or something? And I've started telling people over the last really year that we've been kind of working on getting this up on our website is, go out to CarBuff, build out your platform. It's not only going to benefit us and all of our brands, but it's going to benefit all the other brands that are out there. You're going to get your visibility out there, and whether you're just a at-home builder guy or you're a professional shop building out, it's really just a great way to get the exposure of the build out there and all the great products that you're using on it. I say, and then on the personal builds with Trent, I say it's been a way for us to look at how do we get as many of our products on a vehicle as we can. I say it's hard for us to go and spend the money to build an entire car on our own. But now that we've got 10 different brands, it's okay, how do we piece as many of these products onto one vehicle as we can? So I know this year with the Chevelle, it was kind of like, okay, where can we fit different stuff? And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But we just want to get involved in as many ways as we can and get visibility on our brands.
I weigh in on that too, if you don't mind. There's a lot of sponsorships you do and a lot of, content coming at you a lot of times, and sometimes taking the legwork out of getting it loaded into your website, or, chasing them down for the full collection of photos is tricky. Or it's just time consuming. There's a lot of services out there for us, and I think that we're probably underutilizing it at this point, and I think that'll change as I come on board and push our sponsors there. But anything that takes time, and legwork out of my schedule is amazing. There's a lot of services out there that will be beneficial if I use, if we use them and we put the time into it. But I think, as you guys all know, or, we're all time limited. So if the customer can create that profile and fill that with content, and that automatically gets loaded into my website, it gives other people that are shopping on our site that full picture that they're not getting when just shopping on a website. You see that on social media, but sometimes when you go to shop at a retailer, you miss that connection. So I think that ties it all together. And again, it's something that I don't actually have to do. That's I can leave that up to my sponsors to follow up with, or my my influencers or builders. And then, like Philip said, the chance ones that I didn't know that were involved, and it really came out phenomenally, and we want to use. That's a great opportunity for them to connect to me and link to my and get my attention sometimes. So that's a really cool tool that I'm excited to use in the future.
Thanks. Yep. So one thing that sticks out to me that you guys do really well is that you want to not only promote your brands, but you want to promote the builds. And there are a lot of manufacturers involved in builds. And this is something that I think is maybe possibly changing in the mentality of the way manufacturers are working together. Because I would have said, before I saw the vehicle directory on your site and Edelbrock's site and other manufacturers, Tremix, would you ever expect to see another company's branding on your own website? And what does that even mean to you guys? And that was always a question of, okay, how's that going to be received by the manufacturers? Because there's potential competition, but the reality of it is, when you go to a car show and you open the hood or you see a vehicle, that's real world stuff. And so what we're seeing now on manufacturers' websites as they're putting on the vehicle directories is that's the real world content. It's not this, we're only going to show you what we want to show you. It's really how that vehicle was built. And I think that's how the industry wants to see it. They want to see what went into that build, for good or for bad. And I think it kind of levels the playing field, really, for branding. But as they say, the high tide raises all ships, right? And I think that's the overarching message of what we're trying to send to everybody is, hey, let's just help everybody, and then it comes back too. So what you said, Philip, about promoting other brands, that's the reality of what those vehicles do. And I appreciate hearing that from a manufacturer as big as the Aeromotive Group. So
yeah, because it's not only other brands on our website, it's our brand on other websites. And say somebody might go to Tremix website or Edelbrock's website, and they click on one of those builds and they look at it and they go, oh, what did this guy use for headers, or for a fuel system, or for ignition? And that might lead them back to our website. It's just one more spot for us to have visibility.
yeah, good. Well, all right, let's so Sean, you had a question you wanted to ask, so we'll just start with you.
Yeah, so you guys have a lot of the same issues that we have. Edelbrock Group being with comp cams and everything coming together. We have all these different companies that different brands and all that have now come together. So my question is, like, how do you juggle all the marketing of all of the different brands, and how do you when you do product pushes and things like that, how do you coordinate all that kind of stuff together? Because that's something that I feel like a lot of times we end up going down, like, we got to push comp cans, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, we got it now we got this new carburetor, we got to get that out there. And so you kind of end up jumping around a lot, and it's like, how do you coordinate putting all those things together?
I love this question. I've been looking for the opportunity to answer this. When I first kind of sat down with them and interviewed, and to give you guys, like I said, I'm an Aeromotive guy. It's where my head defaults to all the time. I'm driving my car and having fun. These are the ideas I'm trying to come up with, and the creative marketing solutions I'm trying to come up with. So when I sat down, they go, can you do what you did for Aeromotive for all the other brands? And I go, yeah, I can totally do that. It's the same formula. I'll just repeat it. In the last 2 months, I've quickly realized that's not going to work. While I think I could manage all the brands, I think giving them their due attention and that they deserve, it's just too hard to try to cover that many brands for one person especially in a creative position, to figure out what they look like and what's unique about each one and how you execute each one. It's a really tall order. If I spend too much time focusing on one, then the other 9 get neglected. Just exactly what you said. If I gather my team around me and we're executing on a high level for Aeromotive, then we've really neglected all the other ones. And so I'm kind of quickly realizing that that's not a realistic angle, and I'm going to have to kind of find people that that they're only solely thinking about exhaust stuff. It's the off time. It's when you're not in your office, those really creative ideas that come to you. You can't do that for all brands at once. Now, there's some benefits to it. Like when I was walking around at Good Guys, I'm not just looking for one part on a car. I get to look for every one of them, and that saves me a lot of time in that regard. So there is the scalability factor. When you have this many brands, there's pros and cons of it. But truly, I don't think that I can personally handle all of them at once. It's going to take kind of divide it out, into smaller groups and have people that are more brand managers for specific product lines. It's a tall order to try to give everybody the attention they deserve. And I think I underestimated that, just being realistic, that, how much that's going to take out of you. It's from a social media standpoint alone. Let's say you got to post something for somebody every day, and you put 30 minutes into putting together a post. You've put a very minimal amount of time and effort into organizing a thoughtful post, and now you've wasted half your day trying to cover all of these manufacturers. So you've got to do it again tomorrow. So I don't think that it is something that we should expect or try to demand of employees to really, try to handle so many accounts at once. We're not doing them justice by that.
Yeah. To be fair, when we brought Jackson in, we knew that he wasn't going to be able to handle the brands.
I didn't know that.
And that's been one of the challenges over the last couple of years, as we brought all of these brands together, trying to work on them all at the same time, is having people that know a lot about different products. And we've kind of hit a reset button recently on some of our marketing stuff. That's why we brought Jackson in. We're trying to reorganize internally to put that team together to make all of that happen, to be able to juggle all those balls and not be dropping them constantly. So, and that's the great thing, is we've got a lot of internal people now that know the different segments, say whether we're talking about drag racing or drifting or off-road or hot rods or street cars, whatever it may be. It's us working internally to work as a group. And it's not just marketing. I say it's marketing, it's sales, it's engineering, it's production. It's a constant team effort of going all through the company. I think sometimes people, especially in our industry, think that some of these companies are way bigger than they are. We don't have 400 employees. Up until we moved into our new building the beginning of this year, we had 30 employees. And now we're trying to grow that out and accomplish everything. So it's definitely a learning and growing process for us right now. But I think we're starting to get a lot of people in the right positions that are going to help with that.
Nice. Yeah, I laughed when you said people think it's bigger than it is, because that was one of the things I noticed when I really got into this industry. It was like you thought all these companies were huge, like I thought Classic Instruments must have been, thousands of people or whatever. And there's, I don't know, 20 people probably that worked there at the time. But it's the same thing here. Like everybody thinks that we're huge. And I mean, I guess for this industry, we're pretty large company, but I mean, there's only like 5 of us that work in marketing. So it's not, that most of it is manufacturing. It's people, doing hourly work and stuff. So there's a lot of things that we juggle, but yeah, the question was kind of prompted really because one of the main things that I'm responsible for, because I'm like content specialist, I write for EG Nation, which is the kind of our community blog website, and I'm the only one writing for it. So I've been writing a bunch of stuff on car shows and everything lately. It's like, oh God, I got to get back to tech, and so I have that kind of issue. And then like, all right, which tech do I go with? Am I supposed to write about the new carburetor, or am I supposed to write about that? So it's difficult to figure out like which ones you're going to do. And now I've started working with some of the project managers, and I'm getting a content calendar together to kind of figure out where we're going to hit it. But I'm the only one writing it, so it's kind of hard to figure out like, all right, am I going to do a car feature, or I'm going to do tech? If I do tech, it's probably going to take at least 2 weeks to do the research and all that kind of stuff and write the article. So it can get kind of crazy to get the content out and try and figure, and so everybody, like you said, is not, you're not neglecting the other brands. So it's difficult.
Yeah. Well, and you got, I mean, like you mentioned, Jackson, everybody's busy. We're all busy. And if we can find something to help us not shortcut the value, but shortcut the process, like what is that? That's the golden question, right? How do you do it? And I'm proposing the question of, is there a role that brand ambassadors, really identifying people outside of your core organization, but they are, for all intents and purposes, an ambassador of the brand because they believe in it. So what could they bring to the organization, to you as a marketing person? Is there a way to leverage relationships outside of, the core of the company and bringing in ambassadors for content, because you've already got people out there beating the drum of Aeromotive Group and of Edelbrock and of Tremec. So how do we work together with them? And that's really where we want to go with, as CarBuff is, okay, like let's help solve some problems. And I'd say the biggest problem is time for people. So I'm throwing that out there because as a group and as an industry, this is a problem everybody deals with. And if we can come up with solutions for one company, it's probably going to be solutions for others. So throwing that out there because I think ambassadors are a key to some of the struggles in branding and marketing. So, sure, all right, next question is from Terry McGeehan.
Okay, do you guys, when you are running a campaign, what do you use as metrics or KPIs to tell if it's being effective? Do you have any standardized things you look at?
So this is going to kind of sound like a smart ass answer, but I don't want to look at KPIs. I know that's like a necessary evil of it, but as an automotive enthusiast, I think that we need to start trusting our eyes and our gut and go with that. I think sometimes you look at these KPIs and you start trying to figure out why some things behaved one way or another. Social media metrics, do you start feeding into the algorithm because you want to be trending or you want to get these followers? But I think at the core of it, we're all consumers of automotive, media and purchasers or builders of stuff, and we need to kind of go with our gut and what that looks like. I think of sometimes, and I'm realistic. I have to do it. I look at the same things that you guys do, engagement and, you know, the whole list of KPIs, let's be honest. But truly, I think that we can start obsessing over that stuff and it be to our detriment. I think that we really need to get back to our roots and you know, what does automotive content look like before we had these KPIs? You know, how do we serve the content that we as consumers want to see and that's interesting to us? That's also tech, but it's also entertaining. I think that, you know, having ambassadors that are willing to you know, talk about our products in a technical manner and show our fuel system before the body gets put on it and why they chose that one and, you know, why they went this angle or that. A lot of times, you know, I get a sponsorship and they go, you know, shout out to Aeromotive for hooking me up with this pump. Well, that's not really doing me any good. That's not doing them any good. Maybe I get a bunch of, you know, data back on how that worked, but I don't think that that's true. And I think that, you know, we need to, you know, stop trying to do things that, you know, seem trending or really, you know, move the numbers a lot and really try to put out content that we want to consume and that, you know, that feels good to us and that you can look at with your eyes and go, man, that's a cool campaign. I think that like, while short term, that's hard to see. Long term, that's what I want my social media to look like. I don't want it to look like a bunch of trending clips.
From the sales side, I look at it a little bit differently. Obviously, I'm looking at different numbers, and big one for me is did the sales increase in a certain area? So when we run a campaign targeted something, we'll use specific areas to target and see how that works. I say this year and last year, we started using specific products that we were trying to grow, but then also tying in some of the products that are more related sales that go with them. And that way we could really tell whether, okay, did we just sell more gas tanks this month? Or did we sell more because we added in a free filter? And so when we can see those numbers move together, it makes it a lot easier to track and see if somebody just got more interested this month, or was it because we did a promotion, or is it just happening just because? But on the sales side, we definitely look at how our channel partners are performing, and we've got good relationships where they'll share with us those types of numbers and go, okay, yeah, we're seeing this, and we can really tell whether things are being effective or not. And trying to not only do it on the sales side, but the marketing side, and then getting our channel partners and our influencers and sponsors all to be pushing the same direction at the same time, so that we can really gauge the full momentum of it.
Yeah. I like how you say, Jackson, I like how you say trusting your gut, because if you look at the way that we market today versus the way that things were marketed maybe 20 years ago, it's a lot different, because we've adapted as an industry to a way of promoting our brands on social media. So Facebook was never designed for our industry, but we've adapted to it. Same with Instagram, same with other social channels. And so we have adapted as an industry to something that was never designed for us. And so when you're talking about trusting your gut, we're all consumers, we're all enthusiasts, we know what we like, and there's a pretty good chance that others feel somewhat similar to the way we do about things. I'm generalizing it, but when you're talking about trusting your gut, I think there's a lot to that. I mean, we're building the Chevelle right now. We're building it the way we like it, right? And so it may not be exactly the way somebody else likes it, but in general, we're trying to stay true to some of the things that are core to a 70 Chevelle. And if you don't veer too far off of what that is, there's a lot of interest in the 70 Chevelle. Now, there's been a lot of them built. And so you take a 70 Chevelle to SEMA and it's just another 70 Chevelle, right? So what can you do that's gonna make it a little bit different? Well, as far as we're concerned, we're building it the way that we want to build it. And there's going to be people out there that appreciate what we did. And maybe people that look at it and say, I wouldn't have done that exactly that same way. But marketing is, I think, along the same lines, marketing a brand when you're talking about trusting your gut and what you like and what you believe in, as opposed to following the trending on social channels and chasing the trend. And you kind of get lost. You can get so lost in that, because what at the end of the day is real about the trends? What's it based on? It's not based necessarily on the things that our industry is based on. So I like that perspective of it.
Again, it's a marketing standpoint. Luckily, I have Philip to balance me out and make sure I don't, go too far in the weeds. But I do. I think it's important to kind of trust our gut, and let's create content and builds that we like, and not what we think that Google and Meta is going to be happy with. I really, that's going to be kind of my foundation going forward, is bring the tech and the stuff that I want to see.
And really, you can gauge it by going out to events, going to the drag strip, going to a car show, going to wherever, and you go and you look around that show. I mean, Good Guys this past weekend at Columbus, I say we can go and we can walk around, and it's like, holy cow, every single car out here seems to have Taylor spark plug wires and a set of Doug's headers. Like, that's great. We're doing our job. Or I say a couple months ago, I was at the drag strip, and I'm talking to all these different racers, and every single one of them is saying that they've got an Aeromotive pump on the car. Okay, great. That means I'm doing my job. So really getting out to those events and seeing what people are using, what they're buying, what they're spending their money on, really gives us that better gut gauge of how things are going.
Yeah. We need to give you guys some cards to hand out when you see a car with your product, so you can say, here, go profile the car and tag us. All right, let's go to Nate Staker.
You guys kind of already touched on the question I had in answering Terry's question, but from my perspective as a builder and installer, somebody that's what I would deem on the smaller side of the market, we get caught up in deadlines and so many other different things while we're trying to run a business and build these vehicles for these customers, that we often forget about you guys as manufacturers. My question to you guys is, what content is most helpful to you as a business from a builder, installer, fabricator shop, to help promote you in a more effective way, as a partnership, as an ambassadorship, whatever you might want to call it? What's something you're looking for from us that would help you promote your brand?
For me, embrace the build process. Don't just look for the finished product. For me, in fuel systems, if we do it right, it disappears. Walking around, the really finished high-end, stuff at the good in the winter, sir. I couldn't see any Aeromotive product. And a lot of times when I sponsor people, it is. If we do our job right, it ends up hidden. And I think a lot of times when I sponsor people, they forget that people want to see just a picture, and that maybe an action shot of, you adjusting the pressure on the regulator or dropping the pump inside the tank. There's a lot of stuff in the process and, technical, things that people really are interested in. There's the guys that are following you. It's not always the 3/4 view of the car. It's sometimes it's, why did I choose this blower? Why did I choose this fuel pump? And how does that work with some of the other components on the car? I truly think that a lot of guys in our industry are interested in the process and the build as much as they are the 3/4 view at the end of the show. A lot of times I'm not getting back pictures of my product at the end of the build. I'm getting a lot of finished product of the car. And I think sometimes maybe it's just the photographer that you hired. He's looking at the car as a whole, and it's a lot of individual components, and they're missing out on some of the hero shots of specific parts. The things that get me really excited, the assets that get me excited that I receive back from sponsors, typically include a picture of my pump. Now, you'd be shocked, but that doesn't happen all the time. They go, here's the car, and here's all the panels I did on the trunk, and it covers everything up. And it's like, well, that's really cool. It's beautiful, but like that doesn't do much for me as an ambassador. If I walk around a show, or if people are walking around to your car at a show, they can't see my products. So that you know, that endorsement gets lost when it gets hidden. So I would love to see more builders embracing the technical aspects of why they chose that, or just showing some of the parts that go into their build that end up getting that disappear by the time it's finished.
And sometimes the fab work is, I mean, the real hardcore car guys appreciate that just as much or more than the finished product. We got some pictures over the other day from a build that somebody's working on, this crazy awesome fabricated aluminum fuel tank that's got beautifully plumbed lines on it and everything mounted up. And it's like, oh man, I can't wait to share this because it's just so cool. Or we go out to shows and they've got the fuel pump at the back, but then they've got all kinds of hard lines coming off of it that it just looks like nice. It's artwork, the way that everything lays out on it. And sometimes it's kind of sad to go, oh, that's all going to get hidden and put underneath something. I say we kind of ran into that problem last year at SEMA. The Camaro that we had in our booth was absolutely a beautiful car, but you couldn't see 90% of our products on it. So it's all about telling that story of how it got to that point. I say if you're a wheel company, yeah, the finished shot is great. If you're a paint company, yeah, the finished shot is great. But so many other parts, I think engine parts manufacturers probably have it the worst because none of their stuff gets seen. But that process following that build, I think really is what people get excited about. So just those clippets in there of, hey, this is kind of the process, and showing the different things like Jackson said, that's really important.
Yeah, I'm looking at
so
Kyle, and I know we don't know each other, but I see you
Yeah.
hosting stuff like that, you know, that the behind the scenes, the hard lines, the work that went into an individual component. I think that people really gravitate towards that. Now, that's not going to be for most people. And again, that might not be the KPIs that you're seeing. Oh, I'm not getting the influence, but man, those guys that are interested in hard lines, or you know, the fabrication work that went into that, those are the customers I want. You know, they're not going to a shop to have them build the car. They're thinking about it themselves. They're pushing their fabrication limits. You know, they want to do that level of work, and I want to see that, you know, from people that I sponsor, and not just a sticker on a fender and thanks for hooking me up with this pump.
Yeah, to elaborate on that, because I was just listening to everything you're saying, going, it sounds kind of right on par. But you know, I've never had any finished stuff that ever performed half as good as like a really well put together, like here's how I created this step by step. Here is the finished fabrication, and it could be something. I mean, there's 100 different weak projects that are completely hidden when I'm done with like a full tilt build. But like those, I mean, you could get a million hits on one of those way easier than like that 3/4 view. But more importantly is you build repertoire with that audience of hardcore, you know, car guys, and they go, hey, that's in, you know, that's better. That's as good or better than a endorsement of a product, is seeing it, how it was used to actually create something, and the steps of that process. You know, like an Aeromotive, you know, say an Aeromotive product. I've run Aeromotive products. That Z car I built was full of them until I got a sponsorship at the back end. You know, here's how I plumb this radiator, so I'm actually, or regulator, so I'm flowing fuel through both rails, and I'm regulating the return side. Like, hey, here's something cool that isn't like, you know, that Holly kit that you're going to go buy that just connects them, and then, you know, by the time you get around to the last cylinder, it's, you know, the pressure's not quite the same as it was at you know, the front end. So but I guess I digress. But the just adding off to what you say, like, I feel like staying true to that side of the industry has done more for credibility than ever getting like 5 million hits off of a cheesy scripted goofy video could have ever got. For like, at least for me personally, I feel like it's created better partnerships, It's created a better followership that's, you know, filled with people that are actually important and kind of leading in the industry. They're kind of like, hey, what's this guy doing? And I see the benefits from that all the time versus you look at like a big influencer type where it's like they scripted a video and you know 90% of the shot is just them and not necessarily the work. I feel like in the long game, the work is what people actually remember and what makes people make that buying decision at the end of the day.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
I think we've got time for one more quick question from Chris. And then when you guys are done, I'll wrap it up and try to get everybody out of here by a minute or two after 2 o'clock Pacific time. So Chris, go for it.
All right, fellas. So what are, you know, the market's ever changing, the buyer and the consumer are changing as well. So what are you guys doing? What strategies do you have to reach new audiences and expand your customer base? And, you know, are there specific markets or demographics that they're looking for in that search?
Yeah, I think as a step for us, and as I come back in, as I want to take a little bit back and try to re-embrace my core group. I think sometimes you end up trying to chase a lot of new markets and you forget who your core market was. So I have a lot of ideas on who I want to go after, but I also want to kind of reorganize what we have been doing. I love off-roading and drifting a lot, but as you look at a lot of my product lines, you know, we need to kind of focus this back on hot rodding. And maybe from the Aeromotive side, we used to always do drag racing, but you know, maybe the drag racing market is narrowing up and the hot rod marketing is growing. Again, I'm gonna keep talking about this because I was at Columbus, but you know, I saw a field of guys that are potential new customers, and maybe that they don't see the benefit of our, you know, ability to provide 3,000 horsepower, you know, to a drag racer. You know, how do I embrace customers that have probably always been there, but you know, maybe haven't had the product line or the attention or the, you know, the strategic look, you know, plan to capture them or give them products that they actually want. In the Aeromotive line, you know, I have to cover everyone from a, you know, 19-year-old kid who drifts to a, you know, 75-year-old guy who finished his hot rod in 1985. It's a broad audience, and every one of them needs a little bit different attention and a little bit different technical aptitude. So making sure that we understand, you know, what that person's looking for and, you know, what they like about, you know, the automotive community. We're all so, you know, broad and have different tastes. But I think that, you know, at the core of it, we have a lot of similarities and there's a lot of crossover. So there are new specific markets that I want to look at, but my main goal is, you know, try to tighten up on my hot rod market and my street rods and some of those guys.
And say we kind of started to dive into some drifting stuff last year and a little bit earlier this year, and it's a booming market, and the average age of the consumer at those shows is under 25. Unfortunately, all of the money getting spent on car parts is probably over 35. So you have to be careful with what's trendy and cool versus where your actual consumer market is at. On the racing side, it's great because drag racing has evolved so much in the last 5-10 years to incorporate into all the drag and drives, big wheel racing, off-road racing. There's so many forms of racing now that it's easy for us to jump into that and say whether we're supporting IndyCar teams or monster trucks or NHRA teams or drift cars. I say we've had a long-standing relationship with multiple drift drivers, with several Street Outlaws guys, with several drag and drive guys. And so you really have to, I mean, we want to focus on certain areas, but at the same time, you kind of have to have your hands in everything, at least be visible and be there. Otherwise, all of a sudden, that market's going to change, that demographic's going to change. Unfortunately, in the next 10, 15 years, there's a huge chunk of the current demographic that's not going to be building cars anymore. And so we've got to move to capturing a lot of that younger demographic now, so that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, when they're working jobs where they're making an extra income where they can go build all these things, that they're already thinking of our products.
Yeah, I think, just to kind of add to that, the trying to determine where your products ended up, to know how to market, or who's a huge market, or who is a valuable market to you. I think, and for at one point and early on in my career at Aeromotive, when we wanted to go into drifting, the Matuzik, our owner, was a hardcore drag racer. He just didn't understand that A1000 might end up on a drift car. And you just don't know, if it's a set of, let's call it LS headers, you don't know if that's going on a Chevelle or on a kid's, BMW E36. Like you don't know where those products end up. So you got to make sure that you're hitting these markets. And sometimes you're going to be surprised when you go to a show and you see a ton of this stuff and you go, wow, I had no idea this was ending up in this market. Maybe we need to give them some of the attention that they deserve. I would try to, before I start going into new markets, is try to establish maybe where some of our stuff is ending up that I didn't realize. There's no way that I'm accounting for, where all this stuff is truly fallen. If it sells through Summit, you have no idea how or where that thing is going to go. So I'm interested in that as well, in trying to figure out new markets, is where's my stuff ending up that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, and it is tricky too when you get focused on too many different opportunities, because there are a lot of opportunities that you don't necessarily know how it's going to pan out today either. So kind of reining it in, especially where you're at, trying to figure out where's the core and where our customers really at. That's another one of those challenges, I think, for most companies, is as the markets evolve, can you evolve with it, or does it even make sense in one direction or another? So, well, thanks everybody for being a part of the panel. It's always, I think, maybe a little bit nerve-wracking for a manufacturer to pull back the curtain and kind of open up to the industry, but it's super helpful, I think, for a lot of people to get a better understanding of kind of the inner workings of these manufacturers. There's a lot of things we learn, and probably things that you guys learn as well in the process, and we're grateful that you took the time to be here and share your thoughts, talk about where you're at and kind of where you're going. And also thanks to everyone else that has been watching and listening in as well. We know everybody's busy and we appreciate your time. So with that, thanks everybody, and we'll see you all next month.
Thank you, Trent.
Everybody else on the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aeromotive guys.
Guys.
See y'all.
Thank you guys.